Watch us turn one of the most disgusting houses, aiming for a $100,000 profit, about 13 Ks out of Melbourne in 2025. We bought this house off market at the end of 2024. We set aside 30 days to smash out as much of the reno as possible. Across the next few videos, I'm going to share the details of this project, coordinating trades, buying off market interstate, and challenges we had to overcome, as well as how renovating with a newborn works. I'm Todd Sloan, and this is our 30-day Melbourne Reno. But first, why Melbourne? After seeing the median house price of Adelaide and Brisbane overtake Melbourne, I knew there was a potential value play to be had here. Almost every other part of Australia had seen amazing growth over the past few years, bar Melbourne. High land tax, negative sentiment, lower rental yields, all the things that make some investors run away.
Run, investors, run!
Gave me the reason to keep looking closer. By securing a reno on a good sized block, room for a granny or an SSD as they call them in Melbourne, we had the ability to create a deal with enough rental income to cover itself, meaning the debt from the entity the property's held in can be negated, which gave us a clear picture of how this deal was going to help us get into the next one. B&I turned our baby moon into a buying moon, going to tons of auctions and opens, putting in offers on properties that tick the boxes. Got very close with one off market, which was officially the worst house I've ever seen. But the vendor had a pretty complex situation and they changed the price on us, making the profitability completely disappear. So we walked away. Coming back empty-handed never feels great, but it gave us some good time to build relationships with agents in person. Relationships I nurtured over the weeks, staying in touch until I secured the property we have today, off market for about $540,000, 3-bed, 1-bath, around 650 square meters. Literally a few days before our little boy popped out the sunroof and introduced himself. The key with finding off-market deals that no one else gets is exactly this. Stay consistent with agent communication. Stay clear that you're easy to deal with and can actually close a deal. And put in the effort to actually build relationships. Don't just be another voice that calls once, gets forgotten, and expects an off-market deal to be handed to them. When the broker ordered the valuation on the purchase of this property we're talking about right now, it came in at $610,000, meaning before we'd done anything, there was a $70K uplift in value. Totally worth making a few consistent phone calls and building some relationships. The other thing I love about this deal is that it's actually in reach for so many new investors. Whilst we have a larger portfolio now, this isn't the kind of deal you need $1 million in equity or be on $300,000-$400,000 a year to pull it together. A deal like this can actually be done on below average income. Let me quickly show you.
If someone was to say buy a $540,000 investment property, we do a 10% deposit. The rental yield on that property is 4%. The loan is structured on 5 years interest only, and they're living at home rent-free. The type of income that they would need to service that loan is $70,000.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Most comparative sales that were in the mid-sixes had very basic bathrooms, L-shaped kitchens, and pretty closed-off floor plan. However, comp sales with slightly nicer kitchens and bathrooms and more of an open floor plan seemed to have a few comps in the 700,000s. There was one outlier in the 800s, but being only one, we didn't want to rely on that. So our job for this project was clear. Hit the market expectation of getting a reval done in the low 700,000s in the most cost-effective way possible. Our focus points to achieve this were removing a structural wall for $5K, redoing all the floors for around $5,000, kitchen for $15,000, and a bathroom for $15,000 as well as allowing another $30,000 for everything else the house needed. Things like painting the exterior, redoing walls, cleaning walls, air conditioners, repairing windows, skip bins, insurance, there's a huge list. Like with every renovation, there was a few surprises that changed the timeline. I'll unpack how we solved those using the P.E.A.R Framework and what we were able to control to actually come in under budget in some areas. I'm going to break the rest of this video into the 4 weeks we spent on the project and fully open up the numbers and trades week by week. I packed the car up the night before and we left about 6 a.m. in the morning, stopping about every 2 hours. Freddy was actually amazing to travel with. We weren't sure how he'd go on an 8-hour drive as a little baby. Got to the office just in time before they closed to pick up the keys. Did a quick walkthrough to make sure no one was in the house before Freddy and B had their very first look. This was literally the first time Bianca had ever seen the property in person. I am very lucky Bianca is the kind of person that has vision. She can look past everything that is and look at it to see what it both can and will be. When renovating interstate, or sometimes just really far away, we'd normally set up a clean room. But because the boy's on the team now, we got a cheap Airbnb nearby, just to make sure he was 100% safe, adding another 4K to the spend. Bright and early the next morning, I got to work stripping.
That is correct.
No, not that kind of stripping. Stripping out all the interiors, the kitchen, everything that actually needed to come out according to our plan. The thing that really blew me away about this place though, is like someone actually lived here. The vendor we bought it off lived in this property. I just want you to remember someone lived here. This was someone's kitchen. I genuinely don't know how. I don't even like it when the floors aren't vacuumed at home. So when we removed the gyprock from the wall that was actually coming out, we uncovered that the flue from the old gas heater was actually fully asbestos. Now, if you're new to renovating, understand your building inspector can't actually tell you if things are or aren't asbestos 100%. They give you like vague kind of, maybe it is, but if you want to know 100%, you have to actually take a small sample, send it off to a lab, generally costs you anywhere between $800 and $300. Then you can know 100% if it is. So we contacted a few local professionals to actually get this removed, but their lead time was like 2 weeks. And the wall had to come out tomorrow because the builder was booked in, they couldn't move the appointment. Plus, not only that, they wanted like $3,000 to get rid of this asbestos flue, meaning we'd probably go over $3,000 with the budget of removing the wall. Meanwhile, I continued to strip out moldy gyprock and hired some extra hands to strip out the bathroom and the tile floors. Oh, and an extra point. I'm going to share something with you guys later that I wish I knew earlier on how we strategically bought the kitchen for this place, a few other bits at Bunnings to actually earn us a business class trip to Tokyo. I'll get into it later. Thinking about that holiday was actually the inspo I needed when I was hitting problems like the tiles aren't actually stuck to the floor, they were stuck to cement sheeting which was nailed down on top of the floor. This ended up taking way more time getting them up than we originally anticipated, which is still kind of pros and cons against if it's actually glued to the floor. Scraping the glue off of wooden floors while still trying to keep the floors nice and intact is its own set of problems. So it's a little bit of a tomato, but it just took a lot longer to get up. But on the positive note, pulling up the carpet was a really pleasant surprise that apart from scraping back a bit of the old underlay, the floors were in pretty good nick under them. And considering how like disgusting the rest of the house was, it was a super positive surprise. Back to the asbestos. Now, I hate touching asbestos. I don't see the point in making millions of dollars in property at the expense of your health. It's just dumb. But after getting in the roof and on the roof and seeing how we could actually move this both legally and completely safely without breaking anything or causing any kind of dust, we made the choice to go overcautious, suit up, wrap everything in Glad wrap. We actually even sprayed shaving cream on some parts as well, just in case anything was to break a little bit, which it didn't, it all stayed intact. And then double bagged and disposed of everything correctly, saving us $3,000, not putting our health at risk because we weren't breaking up any of it, and doing everything above board. Now we're back on track, back on budget, and we're ready to have the builder come in and actually place the structural support beams. Originally, we were going to go with something called a hanging beam, which would have given adequate structural support and been totally concealed inside the roof. However, getting a 4 or 5 meter beam inside the roof presented its own challenges, extra costs, and so on and so forth. So the builder actually suggested an internal goalpost support beam. Just literally like think of like soccer goals. And we jumped on it because what it ended up meaning was that we could still get the exact same feel of opening everything up, but it brought the entire materials and labor cost down from $5,000 to $1,414, like under $1,500. I was very happy with that. And whilst having the beam completely hidden, 100%, it would have looked nicer. The small amount of 6 or 8 inches or whatever it is that protrudes slightly from the ceiling is a very small trade-off to make, because you've got to remember, the idea of this is to hit the market expectation. The market expectation here was to provide more open plan living, and in the most cost-effective way. When you're renovating like this, you're not renovating your home for exactly what you want. And you remember, if we do it in the most cost-effective way and it still puts us in the comps of around the 700,000s, it's the right decision to make. Over to the bathroom. Now, a bathroom is supposed to have a solid floor, not the rotten, brittle mess this bathroom was built on. I wasn't expecting this, and we actually hadn't allowed it in the budget. This was gonna add an extra $800 in labor and something called Sky-On flooring. But thankfully, the time pressure wasn't the same, so I got to work ripping up that old bathroom flooring, the wooden floors and the yellow tongue over the top of it. So we were 1 week in and our bathroom looked like this. I want you to take a good look at this picture. Whilst this might look terrifying if you've never renovated anything before, when you begin to understand that houses are just layers. Think about when we put on the layer of flooring, then the layer of waterproofing, then the layer of screeding, then more waterproofing, then tiling, then the layers of the bath, the vanities. It all starts to look like a bathroom again. But in isolating each of these layers in simple steps, when you understand the process, along with your 3 other controllable pillars when building a portfolio through renovating, could drastically speed up portfolio growth. I'll talk about them a little bit later. After an entire week's work, B and I decided to take a half day and go to our favorite cafe, shout out to Cali Bakery, amazing, with Freddy Boy and my mum, and taking Fred to the Melbourne Aquarium for the very first time, which was adorable. We actually flew my mum over to take care of Fred. We're very, very fortunate that we even have that as an option, because by this point, we had realized we were starting to go, okay, we're probably bitten off a little bit more than we can chew now as far as having the boy on the team. He's super productive for cuteness, but not as productive on the tools, which flying mum over added another $319 to the Freddy Fund, which if you don't have a baby, you don't need to worry about any of this. At the start of week 2, I found this out. Our original plan to tile over the existing laundry floor was out the window. We'll get to how I solved that in just a minute. First, I had to get to work on the rest of that floor. I've done quite a few of these before, but something that I've encountered for the first time was underfloor, in-floor gas heating. I couldn't find any kind of like nice covers for these vents, and the system was done, it was gone, so it had to come out. And quick tip on this, when you're replacing a kitchen and taking out a wall or vents like this and you're polishing the floor, a great thing you can do is actually take the floorboards from underneath where the kitchen cabinetry is going to sit. Replace that with some flooring that it doesn't matter what it looks like because kitchen cabinets are going to sit on it, and pop it over where the wall was or where the heating vents were. And you'll have a little bit of a difference, but not much. Repairing all of the vents took me way longer than what I thought. And mainly was because I made a mistake and I actually overcut a few of the vents so that the floorboard wasn't actually sitting on the joist underneath. So then when you'd stand on it, it would just flex, meaning I had to get under the house and put new supports under the section that I'd overcut. And unfortunately, I did this in a couple of places. But we got the supports in and the job was complete. Happy days. Now, I'm going to go into all the detail in like a separate bathroom video and how the input from Oliver Chung was actually awesome. Really good working with him on that one. But for now, I want to share you a little bit about how we began optimizing the layout using scaled cardboard cutouts or like core flue cutouts to really bring the sketched plans of the bathroom to life and just physically see like, what's this really going to look like? And are these actually the best places for everything? It was really super helpful. And cost about $20 in like core flute from Bunnings. Now the plumber, sparky, and painter could get busy replumbing, rewiring, fixing up, patching parts of the wall, and cleaning these disgusting walls. Because everything that needed to be stripped back was stripped back to its bare bones. And luckily, because all the internal plumbing work that needed to be done, the builder hadn't yet come to install the bathroom flooring. Meaning with just an extra trip to Bunnings, 3 more sheets of Sky-On, more demo work on my side, ended up being a pretty easy solution to fixing the laundry floor, because when he came in, it was like an extra hour's work for him to do the bathroom and the laundry all at the same time. So by the end of week 2, visually, not much had changed. Because renovating normally works in 3 stages: stripping and demo, preparation, and install. The stripping and demo was all week 1, and it has like a huge visual impact. You walk away after that and you know you've been at work that week. Whereas week 2 was filled with all of the prep work, the rewiring, the replumbing, all of the super important things that's hidden behind the layers we spoke about earlier. By this stage, we felt we'd worked enough to have another day off, so B, Freddy, and I ended up hanging out in the city, grabbing some lunch. Waking up super excited knowing that today was the day the plastering was all gonna go in. This was a really crucial point because without the plaster, like the gyprock on the walls, the waterproofing couldn't go in, which meant the tiling couldn't happen, like the painting couldn't happen, the kitchen couldn't happen, which is exactly all these extra layers. Like this is a thing that if it stops, everything else stops pretty quick. Unfortunately, my excitement turned to problem-solving mode pretty quickly at about 8 a.m. The plasterer who had come out and actually quoted the job in person and even dropped off materials had just driven off without saying anything. Only to tell me after I called him that apparently now the job was too big for him. I was confused and obviously I was annoyed. I was really annoyed because I understand super quickly the knock-on effect that this has to a timeline, especially when you're trying to do it in the tiny timeline that we gave ourselves. But it's important in moments like this to push pause on the emotional reaction and put a trusted framework into action. I never used to do this stuff, and it's why in the early days it was more difficult. But now having things like this makes stuff that can be a lot more difficult for other people super simple to follow. I use something I've developed called the P.E.A.R Framework. I'll open it up in just a second. Speaking of plastering and further illustrating the importance of the layering, if you're putting in a wall-hung vanity or you're putting in overhead cupboards in the kitchen, you need to make sure your cabinets actually have something to be attached to. This is a super common mistake that a lot of people make, which is why I already put in extra noggins in the bathroom and the kitchen and sent photos to the plumber and to our builder putting in the kitchen. Oh, and an extra tip on this, just to go one level deeper as well. It takes something called X-ray photos. I don't know if I made that term up, but it works. When all the sheets are off and you've got all of your new noggins in, your stuff, or whatever you're doing, and even if it's just pipework, plumbing, get a tape measure, put it at a point that is going to be fixed even when your sheets are on. I normally recommend like a window seal or like something that you can always put it straight back to, and take a photo of the tape measure lying out. So later on, you can clearly see what's going on behind that wall. You know where everything's marked. You can always use a stud finder, but not so much with the plumbing side of things. It's just for the extra 5 seconds it takes to do this, it gives you a lot of peace of mind later on. Yeah, back to solving this plaster issue. So P.E.A.R.s, problem, effect, alternative choice, reorder. Step number 1, P, identify the problem. This one was pretty simple. The plasterer didn't rock up. Well, he did, but he didn't actually do the work. There was no plaster on the walls. Problems identified. Secondly, what's the effect of this? In this case, all of the trades or the other jobs that I just discussed before, they couldn't get done. So it was a pretty big effect. Now, other times you might be putting something through a P.E.A.R framework when you're annoyed and you actually look at it and you're like, actually, there's not really much of a knock-on effect to it. Cool, don't waste your energy. Sometimes it is just an emotional reaction of maybe being stuffed around by someone, but there's not really much you can do about it and there's not really much that's going to be done to you. So move on. In this case though, there was a lot that was going to happen if we didn't actually solve it, which brings us to A, alternatives. The alternative choices we had is I could either try and sheet it myself or I could find another plasterer. Now we look at the alternative choices and reorder them into what's actually the best one to go for, what's sitting at the top of the list. So I've done some small scale plaster work before, but I am not a plasterer, and if you can flush something kind of well, it looks like a dog's breakfast. It either needs to be done properly or to me, it's not done at all. So I kind of looked at that and thought, something that a proper plasterer could probably do in like a day would maybe take me like 4 or 5 days to actually do it correctly, which then doesn't solve our timeline issue. And there was also just a strong chance that it wasn't gonna look amazing. It was probably gonna look pretty average because it's not my skill set, and I totally own that. So we had to reorder to the alternative choice of finding another plasterer. Now I'm gonna go a layer deeper here because I jumped on the phone, spoke to every plasterer that I could get a hold of, and the quotes jumped up from $1,500 that we'd originally agreed on with this other dude, all the way up to like $5,000 and $6,000. And the crazy thing was not only that, but they wouldn't even complete the job. One of them wanted to charge us like $5.5 grand, but he wouldn't do cornicing. Another one, similar prices, but he wouldn't do flushing. It was just odd. But again, we know what the solution is, we just need to keep moving forward. So leaning on friends and a few people in the pizza and property community, we ended up finding another plasterer named Luke, who was awesome, did a great job. And just a massive thanks to Stephen and Ollie for this one. I 100% owe you guys a pizza. But now finding that alternative choice that was back to a cost-effective option, shot it up to number 1, decision made, move on. Because he could do this in a couple of days, which I actually just said how much extra to do this quicker. I think it was like a paid him an extra few $100s to be like, hey, can you put a bit of a rush on this? Which I was more than happy to pay, and he was happy to do. So week 3, very similar to week 2 in the fact that majority of the work was prep work. It's not the huge visual stuff that you see and go, ooh, that looks different. A lot of it was happening behind the scenes. But at least now the plaster was on, which meant the walls were ready to paint. I've always likened like floor sanding to using a really intense vacuum cleaner. If you don't mind getting a little bit dusty and taking your time with this is a job that can save you a lot of money if you've got wooden floors in the property you're renovating. Generally, reflooring a house, you're gonna be spending anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Whereas after a few days work on this floor, we were able to get it done for a quarter of the budget that we were planning on. Hiring the drum sander from Bunno's, extra sanding pads as well, I think they end up costing $376. I think 376. It cost $376 to hire. And for me, that was also hiring it for a week as well. You don't actually need a week. I just wanted, because there was so much happening in such a short time frame, I wanted the ease of like, I've got some flexibility here if I need it. A lot of the times, depending on the size of the property, you can get it done in a day. Then buying the extra stain for $340, also including $500 for the extra labor work of getting those tiles up as well. The floor ended up coming to $1,216, which was a saving of $3,784 on the $5,000 that we'd originally budgeted to get the floor done. Now we knew getting everything done in a 4-week time frame interstate with little Freddy Boy, we were always pushing it. Like that was not like this is gonna be a slam dunk. But by that stage, coming towards the end of our trip, we were pumped. Like the floors were done, the paint was on the walls, the curtains were up, waterproofing, screening was done, like tiling was starting to get done, kitchen was about to go in. If it wasn't for actually losing those few days with the plastering side of things, I reckon we probably would have walked away at that stage, seeing the kitchen in, and also seeing the bathroom like probably getting chromed off instead of it like just starting to get tiled. But it still felt amazing that literally weeks ago, the property looked like this, and now it was starting to look like this. Not finished, but in 30 days, I was pretty happy with that. And obviously now everything's done, it's a different story. We'll bring you more updates with part 2 of this. But first, let's run through a few of the numbers to get the property to this point, like the point that we're talking about right now. And let me open up the 3 controllable Reno profit pillars that I was talking about at the start of the video. Pillar number 1 is buying control. Understanding the details of how to buy a property for a good price, it's great, it's really good. But sharpening that skill set to actually buy a property potentially 5–10% below market value, that starts adding a lot more to your profit. Arguably 5 or 10% more, but dollars wise, it's a skill absolutely worth learning, and it's a pillar that is totally in your control. The second pillar is budget control. Always making sure that you're only spending money on items and services that are necessary to hit the market expectation. Any spending over this is simply a lack of control on your budget pillar, which then leads to less equity and less rental yield. So by properly controlling your budget pillar, you've got way more control to increase that equity and increase your rental yield, giving you such a stronger chance in getting into the next one and continuing to grow that portfolio. But the third pillar is the market growth pillar. Whilst you might not have direct control, actually there's no might, well, you don't have direct control of a market going up or down in value, you do have complete control in selecting a market that has everything going for it for strong growth, that's set up to move forward and provide not only the uplift you've got from controlling your budget and adding value, but then the uplift of the market increasing the property's value as well. And remember, it's not always about absolutely killing it on all of these 3 pillars. It's about balancing all 3 to create a deal that helps grow your portfolio. Like for example, if you buy something and it's just a good price, you didn't negotiate with a gun in your hand and get something that was like totally crazy, how did you buy it? But you control the budget really well and you've chosen a location, then it's absolutely set for growth. You can still get a stunner deal. Or on the flip side, maybe you negotiated an amazing deal and it's in a really good location, your budget blew out a little bit. Maybe you spent an extra 10–20 grand that you were going to. Don't beat yourself up, because you got it at a great price and you're in a location that's performing really well. Learn how to balance all 3 of these together and you've got the makings of someone that can build a strong portfolio. Before we show you all the final figures in the next video, If you've enjoyed this one, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss all the final rental details, like the full breakdown of everything. But let's jump into the breakdown of everything so far right now. Starting with wall removal. We end up spending $1,414, way under budget with that. As far as the floors, they come in at $1,216, again, way under budget. Our bathroom up to this point came to $6,553. But at this point, we still had a way to go. And if there's anything that might go over budget a bit, I'm looking at this one. Our kitchen by this point was $8,035. I was feeling pretty good that everything was gonna come in on budget with the kitchen. And we put in like a good kitchen. Like this isn't just like a little L shape. Like I said, we had to hit the market expectation for this one. And our general house spend came into $24,790. And let me just list off, just so when I say general house spend, let me get some make some sense to this for you. I've got it on a giant whiteboard over here. So it was $1,500 for plastering, $1,000 for one skip bin, insurance was $110, $1,000 for another skip bin, there's another one to come as well, $220 for the plumber to come in like the second day we got there, because someone had stolen the copper piping and one of it was under the house. Anyway, to fix the copper. And actually, you know what? This is a long list. I'm just gonna put this on screen right now and you can push pause so you guys can see it all. Otherwise, I'm gonna be reading this to you for a while. That's probably not a very entertaining video. But the point is, I wanted to be as transparent as we can be for this, because when I started renovating, I didn't have this kind of stuff. So much of it was just trial and error. And to see that it's still possible in 2025 to not spend $200,000 on completely redoing a house, to actually putting together a profitable deal, to buying a property without being on $150,000, $250,000. Like, can you do all of this on 50 grand with 10 grand in savings? No, like you absolutely need some solid savings behind you. You still need to be on a reasonable income, but it's not crazy out of reach. And we're talking Melbourne. We're not talking about a one-horse town with a population of 1,000 people. So in total, including that Freddy fund, it came to $49,992 spent to that point. So, but again, if you're not doing this with a little one, then realistically the actual reno came to $43,943. That's taking away like the clean room, flights for mum, like just all of the looking after Fred stuff, which we're including, but like I said, you don't have to do that. In part 2 of this video, I can't wait to share the completion with you guys. Can you actually still do a kitchen for under 15 grand in 2025? How do you score a free business class trip to Tokyo whilst renovating and putting in a kitchen? Again, I wish I knew that one earlier. Alongside all of the details and small nuances, the pros, the cons, the fun bits, the not so fun bits, that everything that we can share with you that happened on this project. Bathrooms, kitchens, painting, all of it, to increase the equity, cash flow, and further build the portfolio in 2025. And quick side note, part 2 is actually still being edited, like right now. So if there's anything that you want to see, and we've got footage of it, drop it in the comments below. Let us know, because if we can make it happen, we can include it. I'm happy to chuck it in if it's what you guys want. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. My name is Todd Sloan, and I'm going to be opening up more of my journey and how all of the amazing guests we have on the show on P.E.A.R Property have helped influence me to grow my portfolio from back in 2019 being worth $280,000 to now over $6 million today across 3 different states with super healthy cash flow. So if there's anything more you're wanting to see about my story and what I'm doing, I don't think I've ever really hidden it before, but I'm going to be opening it all up. Let me know and I'm happy to share it. This episode was powered by Suburbs Finder, Investor Kit, Property Developer Network, Property Strats, and Full Circle Finance. More about our amazing show sponsors in the show notes below. My name is Todd Sloan. This is the P.E.A.R Property Podcast. Have yourself an amazing rest of the week and stay awesome.